Hindol Sengupta. My guest today is General Anil Malik, and I invited the General to talk to me about three big themes that I want to address in this conversation. The first, of course, is what's really happening within the Indian Army. There's been a lot of conversation about a rare extension of a month given to the Chief of Army Staff. Remember, the Chief of Army Staff position itself is relatively new in the Indian Army. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about a big debate about the Agniveer scheme. Now, this Agniveer scheme, of course, is a scheme which is to bring in a whole range of, inflowing employees, so to speak, soldiers of the Indian Army, train them for a period of time, and then deploy them, some in the Indian Army and some in other sort of paramilitary forces and others. There's been a lot of debate about that scheme. We'll talk about that. And the third part will be about the future readiness of the Indian Army. General, welcome.
Thank you very much, Hindol. It's a pleasure to be here. These are very interesting current subjects which are of concern to each one of us, and definitely my views, based on my understanding, I'll be able.
Let's then begin, General, by talking about the whole extension given to the Chief of Army Staff recently. Now, of course, talk to me a little bit about how you see this position, a relatively new position after decades of debate. It was created in the Indian Army to better create a command and control structure to the Indian Armed Forces. How do you see it having panned out after it was created, and what do you think about this latest extension that has been given for 1 month?
Okay, Hindol, first of all, to make us, I have an observation and a correction which needs to be. We are at the moment, there are two different aspects. One is the Chief of Army Staff, right? A position which has been there since the time the Indian Army is functional, right, from independence, right? So the senior most officer of the Indian Army heads his own arm. Similarly, you have the Chief, the Naval Staff, and you have the Chief, the Air Staff. Now, these are positions which have been in existence.
Yes.
So, what I suppose you're talking about is the position of the Chief of Defense Staff.
Yes, which the position created to bring all three services together under one,
right,
head, right, so to speak.
So we've had two people who occupied that seat. Bipin Rawat,
yes,
who
unfortunately, yes,
very unfortunate thing to have happened. And then next was Anil Chauhan, who is present Chief of Defense Staff. So to get that factor right. So first we'll talk about the so-called controversy of the Chief of Army Staff. And then we'll come to the Chief of Defense Staff and how it functions. The Chief of Army Staff, the present Chief, General Manoj Pandey, was due for retirement on Friday this week, on the 31st, which is the date normally, I would say it's for administrative convenience, that the month in which you are born is, and you complete 62 years or 3 years of having held that appointment is where your date of retirement is. And like I said, for administrative convenience, it is normally the last working day of the month, which is taken into account. And in this case, it happens to be the 31st of May. Irrespective of which day he was born in the month of May. The system and the was all set for this date of retirement, and it's just that the announcement of his successor had not been made, which invariably it has been a precedent that about 2 months in advance the appointment is announced, so that the successor gets time to get into the system. And there is also that all major decisions taken after the date of announcement, he's involved in it. So whether it's a promotion of senior ranks, or it is postings of senior rank, or new equipment being inducted. So from the date that the announcement of the successor is made, he is involved in the thing, irrespective of what his present appointment is. So unfortunately, for reasons which did not appear so obvious, um, the announcement was not made when it should have been. So obviously, when some things, uh, some norms are not followed or some norms are not adopted, then it raises speculation, it raises eyebrows as to what, and then you'll have a whole lot of people, whether this is the veteran community who've been used to a particular way of functioning, or people down the line, or those in service. That concern may arise, but then they're not directly involved because, as far as they are concerned, there is going to be a chief of army staff. That appointment is going to continue to remain, and irrespective of who comes there. So we'll keep the serving out of the system, and it is more media and the veteran community who get involved in this kind of discussions, or I would say the drawing room discussions over a drink, or that's generally what happens, and it could happen anywhere. Right? So in this particular situation, the announcement was not made, and it's just maybe 3-4 days back that the government decided to give an extension to the present incumbent, General Manoj Pandey, for 1 uh, the
Month.
grapevine said that it is because of the model code of conduct which is on, and I don't think the model of code of conduct applies to such cases, and it could have been easily. In fact, you would have sent a note to the Election Commission of India that this is an important assignment, and we need to have a place, irrespective of when the results are coming out. And sure enough, it would have followed. I'm sure it's been done earlier. A number of such postings would have taken place. So that speculation, I think, needs to be set aside. That it is because of the model. So obviously, then the conclusion arises that the government has something bigger in mind, right? And it is my understanding, purely what I have understood, is that there is something planned by the government, and the logical thing that appears is that the present government, for a large number of years, particularly, uh, this was the requirement which had been projected. Right? That's how the appointment of Chief of Defence Staff came in. So we've been looking at starting a system of theatre commands.
That's
Okay.
right. Yeah.
So the theatre commands, you would be aware of, have been designed in a manner that theatre commanders would be responsible for all operational requirements in that specific theatre, and that is where the system of jointmanship would come in. So the theatre command would have people from the Air Force, the Navy, and the Armed Forces all working together, because that is the need of the hour. No more can we continue with our system of the Army move separately, the Air Force move separately, the Navy. So having tried out the system of the Chief of Defence Staff, they were also given the task of working on this joint manship, creating these joint theatre commands. In fact, some of these theatre commands already in play. We've had the Andaman and Nicobar command, headed by an army officer at one stage, then a naval officer heading that particular command. But you have got representatives of all the 3 services. Okay. In fact, that system has been brought into play, and gradually we started off with few officers being posted there, and those few officers were at the middle rank level, at the colonel level. We've read reports in the paper yesterday that now people of the brigadier rank from the three services have been posted to the two commands which are now intended to be formed. No formal announcements. So this is a speculation that they may be planned. The plans may be to start this new system of command, and this was this known that it will happen phase wise. There may be one for the western borders, one for the northern borders. Okay, so and these will again be experimental. We will improve upon their functioning, and then gradually all the commands will become theater commands, comprising of all the things. So this is my understanding as to why this date has been, because this was a major decision which has come about, major announcements are made, uh, and the time now was too short to sort of suddenly one morning say that now and there was some such speculation. Oh, this is meant to set aside the senior most guy from becoming. I don't think that is correct, because at least the next two senior people, right, are both retiring the same date as the present chief of army. Okay, so it just may happen that the next two guys may be the ones who become theater commanders, and they may be given a 4-star rank to absorb this theater command in the joint mission. So that's as far as this particular aspect is concerned. We have been working this recommendation of Chief of Defense Staff and Theater Command has been in existence right after it started off from the time the Kargil War was there. While one of the lessons learned from the Kargil was that you needed joint commands, joint theater commands, and there was a need definitely for a single point advisor to government. That's how the CDS system. A lot of opposition, each service understandings were different, each person's speculation was different. But then finally, was accepted, tried out, and we are now well established with the appointment of Chief of Defense Staff. And I'm sure the theater commands are next in line, which is going to provide greater strength to the armed forces.
Talk to me
We
a
will
little
be
bit
able to
about talk to me a little bit about this rolling out, as it were, of the decision to create theater commands. In a sense, you alluded to it briefly, but in a sense, then comes from the success of the creation, relatively recent creation of a chief of defense staff. There was a lot of opposition to that also, and you just mentioned that for many, many years. But that has been successful. And therefore, this is a natural next step. Is that what you would say?
Absolutely. I think once the office of the Chief of Defense Staff became functional, their focus was now exclusively not service specific, right? It became the integration of the three services started off at that. While there was, I mean, the need was felt many years back, as I mentioned to you, it was a recommendation of the Kargil Committee report also. And the need was felt. Opposite, we human beings as such are always, there is a resistance to change. It takes time, and it's not only in the armed forces, it takes in all walks of life. There is always a resistance to change. And I think that was a natural thing that was happening. Once they started working together as one, under one person, they realized that the objections that were there were gradually overcome. I wouldn't say that everything is hunky-dory today. As the system comes into place, there will be, again, issues which will need resolving. Okay. So while the office of the CDS is functioning very well, how this integration, they would have worked out as to how the integration would take place in the theater command. But gradually, we will be able to understand that those oppositions that are there, those hindrances that are there, will be overcome mutually amongst each other. Just to give you an example, we've this kind of integration was existing in some form or the other always. Army command, let's say the Western command, the naval command, the naval command, or the air command, would always have representatives in each other. Because after all, if you go into operations, let's say the army needs air support for a particular operation. So you would have a person sitting in the army command headquarters in the operations room, fully aware of what discussions are taking place. And he would be like a link between the army command and the air command. Okay, he had got the communications. He's the Western command was located in Shimla. Okay, but you had the Western Air Command located in Delhi. But then you had somebody sitting there who was taking control of it. So this was happening in some form or the other, in a minor way, right? And this happens from every. You'll have a air controller on board a ship. So this is part of the integration process. Right? But now to get it functioning more effectively, and the need of the part thing that when we are growing big. We have the seas to take care of, right? We have the borders with China, but all these things need to integrate, and that's why the need for the joint command is very necessary. And I'm glad it's seeing. It takes time, but yes, we are. And when this is one of the steps I will say to when we say, are we prepared? Okay, when we are preparing for operations, let's say against our northern neighbors, right? These are one of the necessities that integration must exist. You can't, at that, when you are in operation, start looking left, right, say, hey, come and help me out, or come and be part of my team. But these are integration will happen, and I'm so glad it's happening.
Talk to us a little bit about the importance of this move. India faces, always has faced challenges, faces grave challenges today. The encirclement by China continues. Pakistan remains restive. Grave problems have started in Myanmar, in our northeast. The Sikh issue or the Khalistan issue has started again. So India faces a whole range of problems on its borders. Talk to us a little bit about how the creation of theater commands, in a sense, takes us forward in our journey towards better, more synchronized, as you were explaining, more synchronized, more efficient, security measures, which are able to, in a sense, respond quicker in a more nimble way, when the time comes.
Well, first of all, I'd like to comment on these such things like encirclement. Look, these are. I don't give too much of encirclement. I would rather look at it that if let's say the Chinese came into water or a port in Sri Lanka or in Myanmar. Let's not look at it as encirclement. These are terminologies brought in by academicians. I would rather that. What do you think the Chinese want? The Chinese want a safe passage into the Indian Ocean. Okay. The land route does not permit that. When it comes to South China Sea, there are issues that exist.
Yeah, and then there's a Malacca dilemma, so to speak.
Yeah, I was just going to use that. Okay, the Malacca will always remain a challenge, right? By virtue of the fact that where it's located and the passage that it permits to their trade. Today, everything, I would say, you have to look at the economic angle. Okay. The trade between countries, the trade for oil. Okay. Why do you think the Chinese want bases all over the Indian Ocean? Right? Provide safe passage for their trade. Why do you think the Americans are sitting here? Who's given them the right to be there? So, and who is deciding that if the Chinese are here, then they're doing something for it against India? I don't give too much of weightage to that. Yes, we have to prepare for all kind of contingency, which we will talk about. All kinds of contingencies you have to prepare for. But let's not get paranoid about that the Chinese are doing this and Chinese are doing that. Chinese are here, so they want to encircle you. They want to go, they're going to choke you from the north and they're going to get into the Siliguri corridor. Those are tactical objectives which exist in any military plans. Okay. I too have military plans for my neighbors, right? I do have tactical operational plans. Okay. But that doesn't mean that every morning I get up from bed and go rushing that I'm going to go for a war with China. I am also securing myself. What is the purpose of all this war is what? A purpose of there we have great trade partners, right? The Americans want to trade the Chinese. Japan, South Korea, all they are prepared for contingencies, but yet the focus is on trade, right? It's not on. Try and visualize this, Hindol, that one fine morning we've had episode. We've had Doklam, we've had Galwan, right? Issues with the Chinese have been there for the time we've been independent. Okay. Sometimes we are not able to convey correct messages to each other on the international forum. And when that happens, then there will be confrontations to take place. And the 1962 war is an example of not being able to understand each other's. Okay. Yet we are the best of trade partners. So the world is focusing on trade and economy, yet preparing for the worst. Okay. I don't not in any way see a confrontation, open war taking place between India and China, not in the next 10 years. Okay, and these episodes that have occurred are avoidable, could have been avoidable, and perhaps misinterpretation of each other's intent. We are prepared, yes, which is our right to be prepared. And if you want peace, you have to be prepared. Okay, so I don't see anything great taking place here.
But how do the creation of these new theater commands take this preparedness forward?
It takes, first of all, before we come to the theater command outfit, we are doing a lot to prepare for our defense. Okay. For example, the infrastructure development that has taken place. I remember I was posted in a brigade which was in direct contact with the Chinese, face to face, what do you call, eyeball to eyeball with there. But yet very peaceful system used to operate, right? But the Chinese at that stage had roads and infrastructure developed right up to the last border post. Okay. While we were still dependent on mules and because that mindset psyche was there that if you make a road, tomorrow the Chinese may come and grab that road and open their axes right up to the Siliguri corridor or getting into. But a decision was taken to prepare yourself from the infrastructure point. you, that you don't have to, the armed forces are not now wasting time in trying to morning go and fetch water from the base, or they're not working on the rations, where do they come from, the ammunition. After you can't stock everything at the post. So you need an infrastructure which will bring you the resources as required, right? Your old airfields, which were there for the British times, have been revived and activated. Okay, so we are well prepared for any mishap that may happen. We are also well prepared that to if we have to switch forces from one theater to the other. We have the air power today to do that, right? The transport aircraft are present, the airfields have been activated. The weapon systems is the next thing that has happened. We went to war with the Chinese with a 303. Okay, rifle. Today, in certain sectors, I would say that our weapon systems are well advanced. In some cases, maybe better than what the opponent is looking at. In any case, we have a large border with the Chinese. And the Chinese have borders not only with us, but with a lot of other. So their resources are also spread out. But then they have the capability to switch forces from one theater to the other, which was something that we were not well prepared for. Today we have that all systems in place, right? Massive aircraft which can shift your forces from one theater to the other. Our border areas today have tanks right at places where they are required, where they can operate, right? And that gives them not only, earlier we had the defensive capability. Today you have the offensive capability which. Now, as far as integration is concerned, okay, let's take the integration between the Army, Navy, and Air Force. The best example for this is the Indian Ocean. And the Andaman Islands are the best example of that. Because this is where all the three services would be directly involved. Okay. The virtue of the fact that you have the Army co-located, working under the same theater commander. Okay. You have the Navy, which is the major force there. Okay. And then you have the Air Force, which would be required to give you that extended reach. After all, I would say that in the absence of aircraft carrier, the Andamans act as an aircraft carrier. They are a projection right into the Indian Ocean where it gives you that extended reach when required. We have the capability of choking the Malacca Straits. We have agreements in place with neighboring countries, which, you mentioned sometime about Myanmar is in disarray. Yes, unfortunately, we are in a very disturbed neighborhood. Okay, all over. But then we also have good relations with some of them. We have wonderful relations, except the one on the west, which because they themselves do not have control over their own situation at all. But with all these things, with Nepal, there are disagreements, but there are agreements which are based on generations of. They are well connected with each other. So I think we are well prepared for all these things. And theater command, like I was talking about, you have one person controlling thing, and because otherwise, what would happen? The Andaman Nicobar guy is going to get in touch with the brigade commander. There used to be a brigade in the Andamans, right? If tomorrow I have to do an amphibious operation in any area close by, then that brigade, that infantry brigade would be required. Now, if that infantry brigade, if you ask him that, come, you got to get for this task, he says, no, let me ask my boss in Pune. And the boss in Pune says, let me speak to the guy in Delhi. Then that guy in Delhi will speak to his counterpart in the naval headquarters. Okay. And he will refer back to somebody there. Try and visualize how having people working under the same person, okay, how it will make a difference. So you are now creating, you have prepared yourself for an offensive capability. You are not looking over your shoulder. Okay. If when you want offensive preparedness, ability to operate uh, cohesively, then you need a situation where you don't have to look back. Okay. So these are just small examples, details of how they are doing the thing. I'm afraid um,
Let's talk a
I
little
will
bit.
not
Let's
I'll
talk
not comment on that.
I understand.
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about the other thing that's been debated about the Indian Army very vociferously, should I say, including in these elections, which is the Agniveer scheme. Now, the Agniveer scheme, as most people who follow such things know, is the scheme to bring in, soldiers into the young soldiers to be trained in the Indian Army, train them as soldiers. A portion of them would be absorbed into the Indian Armed Forces and then deployed in other things, the state constabulary, paramilitary forces, all kinds of things. Now, there are multiple views, about this scheme, and I wanted to understand what is your opinion about the scheme. Do you think this is going to be a successful scheme? Do you think it has problems which haven't been addressed?
Okay. First, I'll go back to one of my own statements: resistance to change. We've had a system operating in a particular manner till, I think, 1965. The color service used to be about 7 years. Okay. Now this has been reduced to 4 years. Now the purpose, uh, this thing has to be looked at from the government's viewpoint, the viewpoint of the soldier, the so-called Agniveer, and the third is the combat units who are going to who have been absorbed this Agniveer. Okay. As far as the armed forces, have been short of manpower. Okay. Right from COVID time, there were no recruitment that took place. So the pinch was being felt at the operational level, at the unit level, as to there's always a shortage of manpower. You take the out of the manpower which is there in the unit, mm, people are out on courses, people are out on operational requirements, people are out for leave, all put together the effective strength that is available. And if there is a 20% shortfall in the manpower, you can visualize what we stand at. Okay. So the requirement for manpower. So then the question is why not continue with the existing system? Okay. The existing system's greatest pinch was being felt by the government was in the terms of the financial implications. Financial implications, I think this is the pension, it was a pensionable job. The pension bill, I'm afraid, was getting beyond a particular reach. Right? So, uh, thought process, the number of discussions took place, debate took place as to what is the solution. We need the manpower. We need our manpower to be properly trained, right? We need, so we can't cut down on numbers. But what we can do is, how do they go about reducing that pension bill? They had said, oh, let them also become part of that national pension scheme. It doesn't work with a soldier. There are reasons, that's a subject of another discussion. So the need definitely exists. As far as the government was concerned, it was also giving them a additional, I would say, bonanza by virtue of the fact that the job requirements, the unemployment status that existed. This was one solution where immediately you are able to take X number and pump them into the system, right? The point you made about some people continuing and some being absorbed into other organizations, paramilitary. I'm not very happy with that particular thing. I am not here to train people to become policemen. Okay. Am I being taken away my primary job that you are now a training establishment for training good citizens to come on the road? Okay. We hear these things. Today, a disciplined citizen will come on the road. That we'll see once he comes on the road. Is he? So I'm not here to train them. I'm not going to shift the focus of my training centers. I must train them in all sorts of things, including traffic management, so that tomorrow when he becomes a policeman, he's well trained. That's not my job. As far as the individual is concerned, he's got a job. Point number one. Okay. So he's happy to that extent. Two, his job is for 4 years. Okay. He may have been given a lump sum paisa, this much you will get. So to that extent, in a country where there's so much of poverty, unemployment, these are to some extent satisfying for the person. Right? And then also that I'm in uniform. But then does it mean that he's going to be fully absorbed by the system? And I will be told the day, 1 week before I'm finishing my 4 years, okay, you are now selected as part of that 25%. Try and look at my psychology 1 year before this episode takes place. Okay. The last time he goes on leave, before he's going home, his family will be asking him, Beta, what's your future now? Are you going to start looking for another job? Are you going to line up tomorrow and the employment exchange, give me a job? So imagine the psychological impact on this person the last 1 year or the last 6 months of his service. I leave it to your imagination to what works on a person. Coming to the unit level, that's the third person, and one of the most important. We want operationally fit soldiers. I was part of a tank regiment. Okay, so we have a crew, you have a gunner, you have a operator or a commander, and you have a driver, right? Who are masters of the game as far as their tanks are concerned. Similarly, in certain other arms, they'll be big. But what is happening is that present training, because we that is being provided to the soldier, is the basic military training, which prepares them to be a good infantry soldier. Okay, he's taught how to make physically fit. He's taught how to fire his weapon and be able to take on things. But he is not conversant with the day-to-day functioning. Similarly, as a troop leader of a tank troop, I'm not too sure that can I leave the tank with this guy to run it on his own, or does he require supervision? Because his training is restricted to that. So that is a little uneasiness within the units. Okay, particularly units like ours, like I said, tank. We used to have a system of dual trade. Dual trade means because it's the crew operated weapon system. Your trade was driver, gunner. So your first leg of proficiency was to be a driver of a tank. But yet you were also trained to be a gunner. Okay. Should the driver not be available, or should in operations there is a casualty that occurs, you should be able to now take on the responsibility of your second leg. So if you were trained for 6 weeks on the first leg of your profession, you would probably be trained 4 weeks on the second leg, so that you are now masterable. Now, in this restricted training period that occur now with the Agniveer, I'm afraid we are not able to give that joint, the second leg training or your proficiency. So that affects operation.
Let's come to the last part
But just
please,
one point of this.
Please.
I had the fortune of visiting some of the units very recently, about 6 months back, where I was I interacted with some of these so-called Agniveers. The level of motivation is very high at the moment because they've been there for about a year. Okay. Very high of the thing. Level of physical fitness is very good. Some of those who are into sports are doing well in that particular game that they are. Okay. And as far as the unit commanders are concerned, they are happy with the state that they are now. Okay. That's an important statement that I've done. They are happy with where they are. In the long run, they are also concerned that this boy is there with me only for this 4 years. And after that, I am not able to visualize his potential. I'm not going to be able to exploit his potential at a later stage. So these are areas of concern. Yeah.
Thank you. That was most insightful, General. As we come towards the last part of our conversation, I want to highlight recent reports coming out of the Ukraine war, that one of the ways Russia is being able to continue its operations against Ukraine is that it today is outstripping even the West and Western supply to Ukraine in sheer ammunitions delivered. Russian factories are just generating many or much more ammunitions, which, in a sense, is superseding anything that the West, in sheer terms of volume of ammunition, that the West is able to provide Ukraine. Now, this is being deliberated and debated in various circles. India has taken up a very ambitious program of defense indigenization. It is now selling missiles to, parts of Southeast Asia. Talk to us a little bit about our, preparedness in this sector in sheer volume terms and also technological terms, indigenization and indigenous production.
Okay, so this has been a subject of debate for at least as long as I remember. Right. And we were always devoid of the best because you had some X country supporting you. Okay. But you also have Y country not supporting your adversary. Okay. With similar weapon systems, thing. There was always a shortfall. Ammunition was always deficient. Ammunition was always a major concern. Not only of operational ammunition, but something called training ammunition. So these were affecting the force. We were always worried that what suddenly you had a war wastage reserve of ammunition, which gave you a capability of 7 days or 14 days WWR, as it used to be called. Right? What happens after that? Should the war extend? Our philosophies in the old days were based on examples of the 65 war, right? That or the Kargil war or the examples of the 71 war, that they were restricted in number of days. Now, the new phenomena, as we see, whether it is the West, West Asia, or it's Russia and Ukraine, or any other thing that is taking place, these are now extended. Okay, to
No, you're absolutely right, General. Even as we speak, I think Israel has just announced that the likelihood of the war spilling in Gaza to next year is high. So we are only in the summer of 2024. It might well spill into 2025. So we are looking at one more, as you're saying, one more extended, God knows when it'll end kind of conflict. And there, the shortfall you're talking about becomes, I assume, far more relevant and urgent. Talk to us a little bit about this.
Okay, so not only the extending up to next year, while there may be a downplay which may take place, truce agreements may happen, but that area is going to remain like this. Huh? It may continue for the next 5 years. You may have pauses, but the situation is not going to change, right? As long as Palestine and Jerusalem and Israel have their differences, this is a lifetime occupation. Okay, so now India was facing this problem of shortfalls. We were dependent on somebody else. Okay, gradually we started improving. Because we wanted, again, don't want to look back. I can't say I fought for 2 days, ammunition khatam ho gaya, abhi kya hoga? Oh, it's got to come from Belarus, or it's got to come from somewhere there, which may take months to come, right? So there was an absolute necessity of switching over to your own production. But this own production doesn't start tomorrow morning, whistle we blow, okay, kal se apna ammunition banega hai. And such, firstly, is making up the shortfalls. Two is keeping pace with the modernization. Today you have a different weapon system. But sometimes you used to feel that I have a tank, and we had an agreement that they will continue a lifetime supply of that ammunition. But tomorrow morning he decided I don't need this here. I'm going to make a new type of ammunition, so I'm stopping production for 1 week, 1 month down the line. Here you are up the gum tree, but you are still using the same old equipment. Okay. Then secondly, when you want to develop new equipment, it doesn't happen overnight. The cycle of production and of a new tank or a new aircraft or a new assault rifle, it perhaps may take 10 to 15 years before you actually start getting those equipment. So it was time that we started this. Okay. Again, because we are gradually stepping into the phase of indigenization. I would say we are just making small steps into it. It's delightful that the industry has joined it. So the government has gone whole hog on indigenization. The private sector is fully into it. Public sector, of course, doing what they are. Today, you have young startups who are contributing maybe small systems into the.
Yeah, for instance, in
Somebody mentioned,
drones. For instance, in
yeah,
drones,
yeah.
you know.
So we know that. I mean, even as I would say a telescope,
That's right.
somebody started making it, and therefore we are much more happy about it. As regards, supplying to the other countries, I have my own. I'm not. I've been a soldier all my life, but I'm not too fond of warfare. Okay. So I don't think. There is a saying that the person you got to be most careful about is the arms industry. Okay. A lot of things that are happening in the world are because of the arms industries need to prosper. I don't have to elaborate on this. I'm sure you understand. So also, while we must become self-sufficient, keep pace with the latest technology, you have transfer of technologies taking place. You may have blueprints which help you move faster in certain products. Research is going on products which are going to be in use 20 years from now, right? As far as becoming a weapon supplier, okay, I have my reservations on these that particular, more from the humanitarian point of view than again. But yes, we are doing well. But these are small little steps. While a new tank is being produced, I still have to buy a tank, nobody else. Okay, because this is going to take me time. We may have produced a light tank for use in the mountains, okay? But these are again small steps before we actually become totally sufficient. But the importance cannot be undermined at all, that there is a need, both from the economic point of view, and then that we are today becoming a world power as far as economic. You want a seat on the high table, then you have to be self-sufficient in everything, including things. The muscle, you must possess the muscle also to be able to speak at the high table.
Absolutely. Wiser words were never said, General. There is a price to pay, of course, for a seat at the high table. And India, certainly, fifth largest economy today, wishes to become the third largest economy by 2027, 28, perhaps, certainly seeks a seat at the high table. Thank you, General Malik, for your kind time. Thank you for your detailed explanations. Appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you, Indol. It's been a delighted